Hey there. So, something I've been thinking about is occasionally doing these little videos where I kind of talk to you about some stuff that I like to share with people when I'm discussing or helping them out with like their careers or getting a career off the ground or doing something with art. Um, and the thing that kind of comes to mind this morning is like the first time I'm doing this. The thing that is the first word that comes to mind. And it's something that takes me back to stories I often tell about my father is the word can't. Can't. I hate that word. Hate it. Hate it. Hate it. Hate it. Can't is your worst obstacle. Um, we live in a world of can't. We live in a world of obstacles and roadblocks and naysayers and people who say, well, you obviously can't do whatever it is you're hoping to do. I'll preface that by saying there's a certain amount of reality that has to be considered in things. You know, like if you're 90 years old, then there's a good chance you may not simply have time to uh, to succeed at something that takes 20 years to succeed at. So uh, that's something that I'm going to kind of put a pin in for another time is the question of time. But this word can't. Um, it goes to the subject of belief, belief in yourself, belief in your own capability. And I would say that if you have a desire to do a thing like art, especially art, and to make it your living or part of your living, you know, if it's a side hustle or you want it to eventually grow into a career, there's a number of factors that come into play. You know, like being able to judge yourself, being able to make decisions about how you grow, being able to have enough self analysis to grow your skills and things over time, being able to critique yourself and take critique from others and discern things about those critiques is incredibly important. But before you can get to any of that, I think a lot of people actually jump right to that and let the critiques become can't. So before you get to the ability to do any of that, to have those critiques, to ingest those critiques, or to critique yourself, you almost need to have a certain amount of cockiness. Um, it's like you almost need to be a little bit, I guess, maybe stupidly determined in a funny way. Um, you need to be able to look at yourself and say, I can do this. I can do this. And then give the attempt and understand you're going to fail. You're absolutely going to fail. You're going to drop that ball frequently. Um, if you're just starting out, if you're just learning to draw, or the two main parts of what I do are drawing and then 3D production. If you're trying any of that, anything in the arts, when you start, you're going to suck. You're just going to suck. And you have to accept that. But you have to believe in your capability to grow. And that's where can't has to be pushed out of the way. Um, my father, as I was growing up, and for those who don't know, it's funny, when I do these things, when I speak, I let my natural accent kind of go away. Um, and I go into what I call my radio voice because it's easier for people to understand across a broad spectrum. I'm from Appalachia. I'm an Appalachian boy from Eastern Kentucky. My father was an older man born in 1919 who grew up in the hills of Appalachia. And So he had a way of speaking that a lot of folks, when they hear it, wouldn't quite understand. Um, Colloquials and things like that. And frankly, a lot of bad grammar. But there was this phrase of his that I love and I grew up with, and it's horrible grammar. But he would say, "Son, can't never could do nothing, can always got there first." And as folksy and homey as that might sound to some people, or as, I don't know, backwards as that weird way of speaking may sound to some people, um, the meaning of that is something that is never lost on me. You know, um, can't, never could do anything, can always gets there first. Meaning, you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that, yes, you can do this thing. He was a mechanic. He worked on cars and built things all the time. If he thought, I can't fix the frame of this car, or I couldn't possibly fix X, Y, or Z that's wrong with this engine or whatever, then he wouldn't have. He would have said, "Oh, I can't do that. I'll pass it off to somebody else. I'll hire somebody else to do it." And then he never would have tried. And he never would have failed, but he also never would have succeeded. Um, he never would have failed and learned from the failure. He never would have succeeded and gained from the success. As a kid, I used to get in trouble, like actual trouble, with my dad if there was something I wanted to do and I said, "I can't." Or I said, "Dad, can you do this for me?" "I can't." Few things would set him off like hearing me say, "Can't." I am thankful for being raised that way, because can't is something I see all around me. I hear it from people all the time. "Oh, I can't do that. I don't have the time. I can't do that. I don't have the money, or I don't have the education, or I don't have the tools," or whatever it is. Um, they're excuses. The difference between a reason and an excuse is an excuse is something you accept that prevents you from doing a thing. A reason is something you recognize as a factor in life that you're trying to find a way to mitigate. You're trying to find a way around it. I can accept reasons all day long, but excuses, no, no. The moment you're making an excuse, you're done. An excuse is an exit point. It's a doorway out of what it is you're trying to do. Um, Whereas a reason is just a latch on the door, and you have to figure out how to open it. Okay? So, what I want to leave you with today, starting out these kind of videos, is that, like my dad would say, "Can't never could do nothing, can always gets there first." You can do this thing. Um, Pertaining primarily to art, but I find that you can apply this to lots of things. Um, and there's a whole world of thinking that I like to get into with that. That is something I would actually welcome some interaction on. If you watch this, leave a thought in the comments on what it is you think you can't do, and maybe we find some things that you can't do. I'm not an absolutist about this, because, like I said, like if you're 90 years old, there's probably some things you can't do. If you've lost a leg, there might be some things you think you can't do, or maybe that you actually can't do for some reason or whatever, or you have to find a different way to do something equivalent. Um, there can be some things that are actual mitigating circumstances, but for the most part, if you're able-bodied enough to, if your mind is aware enough that you can watch and digest what I'm saying in this video, then the amount of things that you can do far exceeds the things that you can't, in my mind. And definitely, what you can do should far exceed the amount of things that you think you can't do. So, um, yeah. So, anyway, I wanted to kind of drop a little something like that and just tell you, you can do this. You can do this. If you think you don't have the time during the day, then catalog a day. Catalog one full day of your life. Or even just as you go. Just, oh, I did this today. I roughly did this today. Or look back and try to think your way through a day and say, well, what do I actually do during the day? Do I spend, 2 hours scrolling through Facebook? Do I spend an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours watching Netflix? Do I spend 2 hours, 3 hours, however long, playing a game? Or what do you spend your time doing? You have 24 hours in a day. Now, let's just assume you sleep for 8 of it. Well, that leaves you, 16 hours. You've got 16 hours in that day. Let's assume that you work, a regular job somewhere for 8 hours a day. That leaves you another 8 hours. 8 hours. That's 4 2-hour movies worth. Lop off an hour for dinner. I don't know. Still, 8 hours, 7 hours, 6 hours. You still have multiple hours during the day that you can choose what you do with them, whether it's whatever pastimes you find that you have, and you have to prioritize. Part of being able to say I can do a thing is recognizing the value of the thing. Is the thing you want to do valuable enough that you'll assess your time and say, yeah, I can dedicate this much time to it. I can dedicate this much time to it. Outside of art, one of my great loves is martial arts, right? So at least 4 days a week, I dedicate myself towards some form of physical training and or martial arts training that works towards bettering my skills at that. I've evaluated my time and said, okay, this is valuable enough to me that I can see giving up something else, some silliness that normally would eat up a bunch of my time, and disciplining myself enough to endeavor into that activity of growth, of that I can do this and I will get better at this and I'll continue to get better at this, so that I'm working on that. I have that time set aside that I can work on moving forward with that thing. I'm also a musician, and anybody who has ever really wanted to get good at playing an instrument knows you don't just pick the damn thing up and start. I mean, maybe there's a fluke or two out there somewhere, some savant who is capable of that. But we're talking about normal people here, okay? And I'm a normal person. Normal people, we have to work at things, okay? There is a real work ethic involved in accomplishing anything. But if you're capable of thinking through that and applying that discipline and that work ethic, then, if you want to, I play guitar. Well, I didn't start out. It was horrible when I started out. I was a little kid, started out, but I wanted to do that. So I put in the time. My father, when he would work on cars and I was a kid, I would go pester him. I'll admit openly, I actually am horrible at maintaining a vehicle. I tend to pay other people to do it. It's something but through the years, I've kind of learned a few things here and there because I've applied myself to it. But even though I had a mechanic for a father, mechanic and bus driver, I learned very little of that from him, because he would tell me to go work on the things that were valuable, or that he thought were more valuable. He thought being an artist was actually valuable. He thought playing music was valuable. He thought reading was probably the most valuable thing I could ever do. And when I would ask him to show me what he was working on, explain stuff to me, you teach me, he'd say, no, get your ass back in that house and practice your guitar, practice your drawing, or read. If nothing else, go read. Um, and then when I would want to do things, he would say, figure it out. You know, he might give me some direction here and there, but God forbid if I said I can't. God forbid. Can't was not an option. So the point I'm getting to is you need to have faith in yourself. You know, I want to offer some encouragement. I believe people are far more capable of things than they themselves often think they are. And you can do it. You can do it. If you've never drawn before in your life, there's a whole world of tutorials and things out there, both throughout my YouTube channel, all over the internet, all over YouTube, tons of amazing materials, stuff that as somebody who attempted his professional start as an artist in like 1992, 1993, man, I can't believe the difference in what you guys have today versus what I had then. It's astounding. It is astounding. There's no excuse. There's no excuse. If it's something you want to do, then find sources. And look throughout YouTube. Maybe at some point I'll do a video where I like round up and do a review or something of different tutorial channels or tutorials that I find out there that are really good. I'm a big fan of Dave Finch. David Finch has some great stuff, so maybe look him up for a start. There's so many ways to learn, so many sources to learn from now, that the barrier to entry, or at least the barrier to developing skill, is lower than it's ever been before. So you can do this. The only thing stopping you is you. The only thing stopping you is your ability to find an excuse not to put in the effort. So stop it. Stop doing that. If you want your first can is I can stop making excuses. I can stop making excuses. Think that. Let that rattle around in your nugget for 10 minutes. I can stop making excuses. That's, as soon as you teach yourself, I can stop making excuses, well, the inverse becomes true. If I can stop making, or it's not the right way to say that. If you teach yourself, I can stop making excuses, well, then can't gets taken off the table. If you can stop making excuses, then whatever you've been making excuses for, you then can do, or at least you believe in yourself enough to try. Failure is important. You're going to fail at things. You're going to do things. If you're trying to draw, it's going to look like garbage. Just accept it. But the trick is to keep saying, no, I can do this. I just have to keep trying. There's a number of thoughts that come to mind that I'm going to sort of put a pin in and maybe come back to and do other things on later. And I'll brush up on one of them here, is to say, when you do art for a living, when you're published and people see you or whatever, a lot of times they'll say things about, oh, you're so talented. Some people might have some natural talent with things. I get that. I do get that. I've raised kids. I've seen my kids and what their natural propensities are. So there's some truth to that. But most of the time, and I will stick to this till the day I die, most of the time, your ability at something has very little to do with talent. You can take the person who has talent versus the person who has the drive and the discipline to try and fail and learn, and try and fail and learn, try, fail, learn, try, fail, learn. And every time you do that, you should be spiraling upward. Your skill level should be increasing every time you try. Okay, cool. well, this part's good, but that part's really bad. Okay, we'll try again. Okay, well, now we improved that. Now we find another thing to improve. Try again. Now we improve something else. You keep doing that and doing that and doing that, believing that you can get better. You can accomplish a thing. You can do a thing. And you'll put yourself on a trajectory towards a kind of personal satisfaction, because when you see your own growth, that's incredibly satisfying. But then that growth will help you get on track to actually being able to set goals and say, okay, I've expanded my ability up to this point. Now I want to try to get that thing with it. Maybe I want to build a website with it. Maybe I want to do a web comic. Maybe I want to plot a course for growth into making a living with this. All of that you can do. It just starts with getting can't off the table so that you actually try and you actually put the work in, and you start to have that analysis and the discipline that starts you on that cycle of try, fail, improve, repeat. So, yeah, that kind of brings me to a good point to close this up. I wanted to take a second, because I've done a fair amount of teaching through the years. I'm not like a trained teacher or anything, but I've had different companies and clients and people that I've worked with who also work with other artists. I've often been in positions where I'm teaching other artists a lot of things. I've helped develop a number of pieces of basically courseware that help artists go from like absolutely nothing to at least getting a good side hustle going, maybe even building a career. And through the experience of doing that, this sort of motivational aspect, this sort of, I guess, this way of thinking is something that I'm shocked how often people don't have that. How often they let the word can't creep into any number of things and create obstacles for themselves that they don't step on over. So for the first video, first time that I'm talking to you folks like this, talking about anything of any importance, yeah, I wanted to focus on the word can versus the word can't. So I hope this is helpful to some folks, and if you enjoy it, if you enjoy this sort of thing, or more importantly than enjoy it, if it kind of gets your motor running a little bit and makes you want to say, okay, yeah, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Remember, leave comments, questions, things like that. I'll try to answer those. I'll either try to respond in the comments or maybe answer with another video at some point. And remember to like and subscribe and all that groovy stuff that everybody's used to throughout YouTube now. So yeah, that's it. Remember, you can do this. Thanks.